This video is going to be about circles. We're going to learn about equations of circles and how to write them. So this is found in Chapter 2, Section 2 of the textbook. So we're all should be familiar with what a circle is. It's a shape and it has a center, and the center has coordinates h comma k. And then the radius is the distance from the center to any point on the circle. So that distance there would be called r. So with that in mind, we have the standard form, or the center radius form, of the equation of a circle. And this will have to be memorized. You'll have to know that. And in particular, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. So a lot of mistakes are made because of the symbol. So if we're going to write the equation, example 1 of a circle with center 3 comma negative 4, then we have our h and our k, and our radius r is 5. So this will be x minus h all squared plus y minus k, the negative 4, all squared, is equal to r squared, and then we'll clean this up. And minus negative 4 is plus. And so that's how you would see it. Now, let's just have a look at the web work. Let me get... and let's come here too. Okay, so yes. Notice that over here in this web work problem number 2, it has equals 0. So let me go back to this problem. So I can make that equal to 0. So with the web work, they want you to put something over here in the box, and then they have equals 0. So if I subtract 25 from both sides, then I'll get the 0 here. So with web work, I would type x minus 3, then up arrow 2, plus y plus 4, up arrow 2, and then minus 25. Let me make a little bit more room. Okay, for that particular question. All right, so just so everyone knows what's expected on that particular question. Okay, so that's problem 2. I might make that problem 1. So let's... and okay, so that should be okay, so everyone should know what's expected on that. Okay, so you're just going to have to rearrange. So normally that's your equation of a circle, and for this to fit, you need to subtract r squared from both sides. And so what's going to go in here is that in the box. Okay, and you'll have your own particular h, k, and r. Okay. All right, so now let's go back. So we've answered question 1. Oops. And let's look at question 2. All right, so for this question 2, my h is -1, my k is 0, and the r is square root of 5. So we will have x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared. And cleaning this up, this is x minus -1, which will be x plus 1. And y minus 0 is just y, so that'll be y squared. And square root of 5 all squared is just 5. And so this would be the equation in standard form. Now in WebWork, that first question, they want you to have 0 on the right-hand side. And so I need to subtract 5 from both sides. And that will give us our 0. And so I would type in x plus 1, then up arrow 2, plus y up arrow. So that's the shift in the 6 button. And then minus 5. And that's what I would put in that box there. Okay. All right. And let's just check that these are correct. Okay. So that should be a plus. All right, so I'm proofreading this now. So x minus -1. Okay. And example 1, we had that. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. All right, let's try this one. All right, now they want the center and the radius. Now this is where students will make a mistake. They'll read this off and they'll say, oh, okay, h is 7 and k is -11 and the center is 7, -11. That is wrong. It has to be in this form. So this needs to be rewritten. It has to be x minus. And so x plus 7 is the same thing as x minus -7 all squared. And then y minus k, so I don't need to change the next one. And 36 is a perfect square, and it happens to be 6 squared. Now, if that wasn't a perfect square, if that had, say, been 10, then I could have rewritten that as square root of 10 all squared. But we're lucky on this one, we do have a perfect square. Now I can read this off. It's x minus h, y minus k is equal to r squared. And so now the center is h comma k, which is -7 comma 11. And the radius here is 6. Okay. So let's check this. Make sure this is correct. All right, so -7 comma 11, and the radius is 6. So yeah, that matches. So I can get rid of that. Okay, so continuing. Write the equation of the circle given in the graph. Okay, so I have this over here. And let me okay. All right, now I've been given a grid system there. So that we should be able to see is where 2 is. And here is -1, -2, -3. And so we should be able to see that the center has coordinates 2, -3. And now for the radius, you can measure left or right or up or down. Okay, so let me get rid of this, because the radius is the distance from the center to any point. So I might do the horizontal distance from here to here. And again, we can see that this, oops, let me get that in black. That corresponds to 2, and this corresponds to 6. And so this red distance is going to be 6 minus 2, which is 4. So my radius is 4. Now, I didn't have to measure that horizontal distance. I could have measured a vertical distance, but I should be getting the same thing. So now this is -3, and this corresponds to -7. And so this distance between -7 and -3 is going to be 4. Okay, so either way you look at it. So now I have my center and I have my radius. And so h is 2 and k is -3. So I'm going to have x minus h all squared plus y minus k, which is -3, all squared, equals r squared. Nothing to change there. This would be y plus 3 all squared and 16. That's how you would see it in the back of the book. So let's have and let's check with, okay, so we got the same answer there. And let's have a look at our web work. That's problem 1. Okay, so here they just want you to give the center and the radius. Center and radius. Okay. We haven't done a problem like that. Okay, so center and radius. Now they will keep these negative signs in there. So if you had, for this one, you can see how I refined it, how you would see it in the book. So for the one that I just did, web work would want you to leave it like this. So you have minus signs there. And so we're not talking about this one, we're talking about the one that we just did. So again, if we don't, not this one, but the one that we just did, the center was 2, -3, and the radius was 4, is how we would fill it in. And then they want these minus signs to stay there. So I had x minus 2, all squared, and y minus k, okay, equals r squared, which is 16. Okay. So just understand that in the book or on a multiple choice final, this would be cleaned up to be that. But on this web work, they insist on having those negative signs in there, x minus something, y minus something. Okay, so that's how you would fill that one out. Okay, and again, I might make sure that that's the third question and not the last question. Okay, so let's go to our last example. In the last example, you're given an equation and it is not in the standard form. This is called general form. So if I'm going to find the center and the radius of this, I'm going to have to change it into standard form. So I think I'm going to, because I don't even need the picture anymore. All right, so the task here is you're going to have to rewrite this general form into standard form. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, that's going to be a number on its own. And there's a number on its own, and I need to get it to the other side. So I'm just going to get that to the other side. Okay. Oh, let me do that in black. So I'm going to have x squared minus 6x. Then I'm going to leave a gap because I have the x terms together. And plus y squared plus 10y. I'm going to leave a gap, and equals 0 minus 25, which is negative 25. Now, what I'm going to do next is called completing the square. Okay, so the way you complete the square is you look at the coefficient of the x term. There it is. And you divide it by 2, and then you square it. Okay, so negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and negative 3 all squared is positive 9. But what you do to one side, you must do to the other side to have equality. So I started with negative 6, I divided it by 2, and then I squared it. And negative 3 all squared is positive 9. So that's where the positive 9 came. That is the process of completing the square. And because I added 9 to this side of the equation, I have to add 9 to the other side to still have equality. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I get my coefficient for x, which is positive 10. I divide it by 2, and then I square it. Positive 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. And what I add on this side, I have to add to the other side. So let me now just and negative 25 and positive 25 cancel each other out, and I'm left with a 9. Now this completing the square was done by design because it's going to be easy to square this now. If you do the trick, two numbers that multiply together to give you positive 9 but add up together to give you negative 6, well, negative 3 and negative 3, which is going to be x minus 3 all squared. But the quick way to remember it, the quick way, let me get a new color, is you'll take this number here and divide it by 2. And negative 6 divided by negative 2, negative 6 divided by 2, so that's a division sign, is negative 3. So again, what goes in there? The quick way, after you have formed these, so this is by design, you just take that and you divide by 2. And positive 10 divided by 2 is positive 5. Now I can read this off, or you might want to write it in the standard form. It's not quite there. We want x minus 3 plus, and then y plus 5, we want y minus. So it's y minus negative 5. And 9 you can write as 3 squared. If that had been 10 instead of 9, you would have written it as square root of 10 all squared. But now that we have it like this, here is my h, here is my k, and here is my r. So the center is going to be h comma k, and the radius is 3. All right. So let's just check and make sure we have the same thing over here. So we had center 3 comma -5 and radius 3. So that's checking out with what we did down here. Now I did this a long way. I went from here and said factoring it gives that, but remember the shortcut for that is once you get it into here, the shortcut is going to be that number divided by 2, which will be -3. And what goes in here is that number divided by 2, which is +5. That's the shortcut. Okay. This was the long cut, factoring it to rewrite it like that. Okay. All right, so everything checks out there. You should have enough now to do your web work problems. There is always one like this on the final where you have to take it in general form and complete the square. Okay, so you might want to get some practice at completing the square. This example is a really good one. I gave you 2 questions in web work just so you get a little bit of extra practice on how to complete the square.